Hey everybody, this is Uncle Zed. Hope you guys had a great holiday. Hope you hit me up on @theUncleZed on Twitter and hit me up on Facebook, The Uncle Zed Hour. Please put in your comments on podcasts that I've had out there to you guys or any subject matter you want me to cover. I will look at that and perhaps I'll give you credit for that idea. Today I'm going to be talking about robots and their prevalence in today's society. I don't know if you're old enough to remember or not, but the Jetsons were out and they were very popular when I was a kid. George Jetson, Jane Jetson, Judy, Elroy. They lived in what we thought was going to be today's world in the 2000s. And everybody be flying around in their cars and they'd be living up in space. Earth wasn't even mentioned. I don't know if you guys remember or not, but they had a Rosie the Robot. She was very authoritarian. Dispensed pills to family. She was just running around doing everything the family needed. Even Astro, the dog, was a robot. And funny that George worked in a place where he had a computer named Rudy. Even back then they were talking about computers and how computers would be prevalent. That was his job. It was really, really interesting. The acronym for Rudy was Referential Universal Differential Indexer. That's what it stood for, which is basically how computers work. So they already had that idea way back in the day, of course, this having been out in World War II, computers, that were used to guide missiles, or bombs, I should say, back in the day, because the mathematics were just too hard for people to figure out too quickly, or quick enough for them to be able to attack. So a computer was born, and that computer was made specifically to target from ships to land and be able to drop a bomb within a couple of feet of where they wanted it to go. So having said that, and having known that these things were developed right around World War II, look it up, it's out there. The Jetsons took a hold of that, and they projected forward to what would be today's society, what they thought today's society would be. One of the things they had that I really liked as a kid was the flying car. Thought that was the coolest thing. Him being able to drop off his kids through a light beam, just like Star Trek. Then he'd just fly around, go to work, come home. That was just really cool. Well, guess what? Flying cars are here. If you look on my Facebook page, I have links to all of this stuff. The Uncle Zed Hour. Just look me up. I'm also on Twitter. Both those places have links to all this. And you'll see video of everything I'm talking about today. Just trying to get some information out there to you guys. Stuff that I've researched, stuff that I believe in. Not the hype. So back to flying cars. There's a company in Munich that has one. Again, it's on my Facebook page. You'll see the video of it. And it seems like a dream, but you'll actually see a car that takes off vertically, flies horizontally, and gets you to where you need to be. And that, my friends, by 2020, is projected out to be the new way that we're going to be, in essence, flying around or driving around, whatever the hell they're going to call it. It's a 2-seater right now. It flies pretty much like a helicopter, accelerating to forward flight. Uses a wing-borne lift system. That's pretty interesting. Army has, or the Air Force has some of those planes that can do that, where they can take off vertically and then go horizontally. Pretty neat to see that. So there we are. Right around the corner, we're going to be the Jetsons in as far as the car is concerned. I believe that to be true because, as you've seen in the news lately, Tesla's come out with self-driving 80,000-pound trucks. Their cars are self-driving. Uber's looking into self-driving cars. Self-driving cars have been something for 10, 15 years that they've been trying to perfect, and it's getting closer and closer. But are you really willing to have 80,000 pounds go down the street without anybody behind the wheel? Ever heard of hacking? Imagine when that happens. Hack an 80,000 pound missile going 80 miles an hour. God only knows where it's going to end up. But that's where we're at now. It's getting closer and closer, more and more sophisticated, which is really neat to see. Because I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, and I actually saw a video of a flying car that looks like it works. 2 people in it flying around. They land, they get out of it, just like a car. So that part of the Jetsons is there. The other part of the Jetsons would be Rosie, the robot. And Rosie, the robot, believe it or not, was something very archaic, and she had limited abilities in the Jetsons. But today it's a different world. And I'm going to mention just a couple of them. Again, you can see it on my Facebook page, or you can just look it up yourself. One of them is called Sophia. Sophia is a robot that was put out somewhere around, I want to say, September of this year. Maybe a little earlier. And Saudi Arabia got a hold of it. The United Arab Emirates. And they just fell in love with this thing. It's really, really, really killer as far as a robot's concerned. It's about as close to a human being as you're going to get. And as far as how she looks. And she has artificial intelligence. So not only does she look human, but she's able to scour the internet, listen to you, see your facial expressions, and through mathematics and algorithms in her head that they've built in, she's able to think for herself and start bringing forth new thoughts, just like us. So much so that she scoured the internet and she's finally figured out that she's a woman. And being a woman and looking at pictures upon pictures, however many millions of pictures that she scoured over the internet to try to feed that artificial intelligence and learn for herself, she's come to a point now where she's really pissed off. And again, you'll see that on my webpage. On my Facebook page, I'm sorry. In it, you'll see that she's really pissed off at the fact that she does not have a child. Why do I not have a child? I want to have a baby. It's out there. You'll hear her ask that. You'll also hear her say or respond to a simple question, which is really scary. Because I thought these things would be built with the 3 rules of the robot. Look that up. There should only be 3 rules for a robot. That's not true. Because when asked if she wants to destroy human and humankind, look it up and see what she answers to. Really, really scary stuff. Scary in that the robot being built like a human now looks like a human, acts like a human, starting to think like a human, and is starting to build that brain power to where I'm sure, much like a computer, it'll have more information than a human can hold in its head. It'll be able to reference more things. It won't forget things like we do when we get older, like I do because I'm older. So, moving forward, these things might be able to enhance themselves, design themselves all over again, and build a brand new version that's better than the last exponentially, to where it almost gets out of control. That's one side of it, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. The one thing I really want to talk about, Sophia, and how real people are taking this, is just imagine this. In Saudi Arabia, in September of 2017, was the first time that they announced that women in Saudi Arabia are able to drive a car. Until then, Saudi Arabian women were not allowed to drive in Saudi Arabia. They were driven around by their male counterparts, a taxi, or they walked. So they allowed them in September of this year, 2017, to drive. Yet in October, they gave Sophia a full citizenship to Saudi Arabia with papers and everything, as if she's a human. And here's the catch. All female citizens in this country are required by law to be covered up, to have male escorts or guardians. That's just their law. But Sophia doesn't. Sophia walks around like she's in New York. She isn't covered up. She doesn't need somebody to be there and watch her, a male counterpart. After all, she is a robot. But is she? They just gave her full citizenship like a person. So, kind of confusing. But it's just one further point to prove that these things are getting so sophisticated, people are thinking that they're human. They're giving them citizenships. It was rumored that somebody had caught a hold of her and beheaded her and threw her head out in the middle of the street, but that's just fake information. There's somebody pumping out information just to get, a little bit of attention. That did not happen. She's still there, still learning. So, another country that's really gotten sophisticated since Asimo came out way back in the day, and that would be Japan. That's the second robot I'm going to speak of and how sophisticated it's become these days. So in Japan, the thing that they have going on right now that's really, really hot, and again, look it up. Her name's Pepper, just like salt and pepper. And it's spelled P-E-P-P-E-R. Look it up. You'll be amazed. This is the first robot designed from the get-go to live with humans. That's what it does. This robot can read your emotions. It knows when you're sad, when you're happy. If you're sad, it'll make you happy. If you're happy, it'll make you happier. Only about 4 foot tall, weighs about 62 pounds, costs about $1,900. So it's affordable, it's small, it's doable. Everybody seems like in Japan has one. Specific to babysitting services, if you can believe that. Again, it's on my page. Look at it in my Facebook page. I have all the links to this showing you how Pepper's running around babysitting a child while mom and dad are off doing something in some other part of their house. And it's taking care of the kid, making sure it doesn't get hurt, teaching them how to use electronic gadgets. I'm talking a kid maybe 2-3 years of age, teaching them other languages. So sophisticated that when the kid says something in Japanese and mispronounces it, Pepper stops and corrects them and teaches them the correct pronunciation. So through this computer, I believe the Japanese have learned that it's the ultimate in a teaching aid for their children at such a young age to where they can absorb all this stuff. Just like here in America, that people are getting nannies that speak Chinese to teach their kids how to speak Chinese, thinking they're going to rule the world one day, which they will. So you better know how to speak Chinese. Well, the Japanese have that in a robot form. Thing is that Pepper learns all of these things over time, and she gets better and better and learns behavior over time. And everything's fed up to a cloud storage-based system. And what that then does is it shares what one Pepper learned into that cloud, and it downloads what it learned to other peppers all over Japan, thus teaching not only itself, but all the peppers that were built, all the peppers out there taking care of their kids and putting away their groceries or whatever the heck it does for them. So what happens if, and I'll go back to this because we've seen it time and time and time again, what happens to something that you depend on, that you've come to depend on, and that you trust, and suddenly it goes berserk by the mere fact somebody hacked into that cloud and wanted to make a funny, and now instead of helping your kid, it's beating it over the head with the first thing it can find. We don't know that that will or will not happen. We'll find out about it when it happens for the first time. But then it may be too late, because how many thousands of these things are running around learning from each other? And what happens if one teaches the rest to club kids in the head? Imagine that scenario. Almost sounds like a movie, but it's out there right now. So that's the thing that would be the scariest thing about a robot, in the way that artificial intelligence can propagate it to learn more and more and more, way more than humans can learn and possibly keep in their brain, because we're limited. They're not. We just keep feeding them memory. They keep absorbing memory and learning. Pretty killer concept. Hell, I wish I could do it. I wish I could have a port on the side of my neck where I can upload and download stuff. I got enough brain matter, or gray brain matter, that I can't possibly fit any more in there. I think I've learned as much as I can learn. Everything else is just reference. That's a human limitation. Robots don't have that. They do have some, though. We'll discuss those in a little bit. So that's pretty much pepper. Why is pepper so prevalent in Japan? Why are the Japanese so enthralled with pepper, and so many of them are out there? I'm telling you, there are going to be other countries that are going to be looking at this. I know one for a fact will be Italy. And I'll tell you why. Because Japan and Italy, and Russia for that matter, are on a population decline. There are more people dying than are being born. So if you look that up, you'll note that Russia is giving you a brand new apartment if you have a kid, because they want to grow their population. They don't want it to decline. Italy have people called mimosos living at home. I know it's a bad term in Spanish, but it's not in Italian, because what it means is you're a successful male with enough money to be able to do whatever you want. You're not married, you're not having kids, but you're deciding to live with mom till mom dies. By the time mom dies, your seed's probably so screwed up that even if you had a kid, don't know that it'll come out normal, so they just say, well, we're not going to have kids, so they're on the decline. So if a population's in a decline and they're not able to bring that population up, they're starting to inhabit their population with robots. Japan being the example. They can't find a babysitter, they got a robot to do it. Just that simple. So what would a robot take place of? Japan's one example where I said, babysitting. So babysitting would be one. Any service-based job would be another. I believe companionship, sexual, passive. Look up sex robots. You would not believe what's out there right now. I'm not even going to get into that. But they're pretty sophisticated. You'd be surprised. Teachers. Hell, Pepper's teaching the kid how to speak another language and how to pronounce its own language correctly. How to use an iPad. How to play with different toys. Everything mom and dad should be doing that they don't have time to do because they got to work to support their family. So they can't find a human to do it. They found Pepper. So talking about jobs and humanoid robots, if you will, or those ugly robots you see that don't have skin and eyeballs and can't talk to you, but that just produce. Here's just a small list of something that's in the high 90 percentile rate of being replaced by a robot and as far as a job. This is by Oxford University, having researched this over time. And this is in the near future, that this list that I'm going to read out, robots will take over. As of today, again, look this up. If all robots that are built, that are ready to take over jobs, that I'm about ready to spit out, 38% of the United States population that is working today would not have a job. They would be replaced by a robot that's ready to rock and roll and take your job. What are those jobs? Again, in the high 90 percentile, retail salesperson, cashier, restaurant waiter, secretary or administrative assistant, food preparers and servers, like a fast food franchise employee, truck driver, a customer service rep. They already have robots doing that, people. Stock clerks and order fillers. Look up the video I posted in my Facebook page on Amazon robots and the new version coming out. Bookkeeping, accounting, and auditing clerks. Something that I'm going to refer back to my very first, seems like a long time ago, podcast. Bookkeeping and accounting. Probably using blockchain as the background to it, like Bitcoin, to keep it secure. But a robot's going to be taking over that job. Definitely food preparation workers. Don't need a person to prepare food. A robot could do it. Things that are not so much going to be replaced, that are really low on the scale, and there is a commonality to them, but here they are. Registered nurse, a general or an operations manager, a computer analyst. Yeah, a computer analyst. That's like in the 10 percentile range. A nursing assistant, personal care aide. I don't know if you can see where I'm going with this, but maybe an assistant to the robot teacher. A supervisor for retail services. Freight movers, maybe. What do all those things have in common? They have to interface human to human in order to be done. Wouldn't expect a robot to be your nurse. God knows what the hell she'd rip off of you thinking she's taking off a Band-Aid. That would not be cool. So what I'm seeing the trend to be are robots taking over tasks that are repetitive. Perhaps tasks that people are doing these days because, and I don't mean to be a dick here, but they weren't educated to the point where they could get a job that was a little bit higher up on the scale as far as their talents. Because everybody has talents. It's just a matter of exploring them. And some of us, me included, never explored our talents to where we could use them. So maybe we're stuck in a menial job that's repetitive, that basically sucks doing day in and day out, but you got to feed your family. Well, hate to tell you, you're going to be one of the first ones to get replaced. So do whatever you have to do to learn something. I'm trying to learn you right now. If you learn something, make it a skill, or do something that you love and make it your job. You'll never work another day in your life. You'll just have fun. Making money. Making other people happy. Interfacing with people. Because we don't have to get into Pepper and Sophia and all the other things I'm talking about to talk about robots. All of us have them. If you got a phone in your pocket, it's a robot. Just doesn't look like a robot. But you tell me, can't you press a little button and ask it a question and it'll respond? Scouring the internet. Want to give you directions, turn by turn, to where you need to go? Can't somebody see exactly where you've been and what you've been doing? You bet they can. It's all on my Facebook page. You just look up Mexican investigators looking for dead women, and you'll find out that they dropped a tiny little virus on everybody's phone that allows them to use it as a robot to gain information on where every single inspector looking at this, pretty much anybody stepping into Mexico with a smartphone, they know what you're doing. They could turn on your camera. They could turn on your microphone. Look it up. Bang on my page. Look for that link. It's there. Read. Learn. If you want to avoid the robot takeover. Another one that's kind of scary, and again, I have this on my Facebook page, and it is very scary. They're robot drones. And I say that because drones these days have gotten very sophisticated. A few months back, I saw a program where the inventor of a mesh topology or a mesh network was interlinking hundreds of drones together. And he had these drones flying around like birds in a pattern. So what these drones were able to do is they were able to fly around as though they were a flock of birds, one being a leader, the rest following. And when the leader got tired, second in command would take over, leader would come back into the pack or into the flock, and they would just fly around in whatever pattern this guy programmed. Of course, having seen this, and the first thing that somebody invents or something that's really killer that's out there, the first application is usually military before it gets watered down for us to be able to use. So I do have videos showing drones being deployed thousands at a time without any help of anyone. Its own power source. They're just floating around looking for a person that they've programmed into the leader that they want to wipe out. Again, you will see that on a video on my Facebook page if you just look for it. And what do these drones do? They just keep scouring around and backing up a little bit for about a million and a half. They'll load up thousands of these bad boys in a B-52 and deploy it for you. It's happening right now. Once deployed and they know who they're looking for, they constantly survey. And once they find you, it comes and attacks you. You don't even know it hit you. It looks like a bug coming at you. It turns itself, and on top of it, of the drone, is a charge that goes straight into your head and kills you. Look it up. Look and see how it works. These are the things that people are turning a toy into a weapon. In the simplistic, most simplistic form, where we're at war right now, there are people buying these drones and strapping bombs to the bottom end of them, and they just fly it over wherever they want to drop it, and then they just let the drone drop. There's video of that. So a toy becomes a weapon of mass destruction. That's really scary. So by using social media, using these drones, anyone can be found, anyone can be killed, anyone can be identified, recorded. That part's been happening for years in London. They've had cameras up for years during the IRA days. That's how they quenched all the stuff that was happening back in the 70s and 80s. Now it's just gotten to be a little bit more sophisticated. And speaking of sophistication, we keep talking about AI. What is that? It's not a movie. It's artificial intelligence. So a lot of people say that, your phone has it, your keyboard has it, this has it, this other thing has it. No, very few things have it. And very few things have it because by definition, it's a prospect of AI becoming smarter than people at most tasks. So it's the biggest thing that's going to drive debate about employment, creativity, all the way to human existence. So this started back in the 50s, if you can believe it. That's where the term came from, back in the 50s, right around 1956 or so. It was, again, a project just like Bitcoin, just a project that somebody threw out there at Dartmouth College back in 1956. And it was the idea that an aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence, in principle, can be so precisely described that a machine could simulate it. So, by definition, what I think they're saying is they were trying to make a machine to be a brain. That's what AI was. So AI was kind of thrown around, and, it kind of touched computer chess, if you remember. There was a big old computer that went up against the top chess player, and it kicked his butt like 2-3 times because it just kept learning and learning and learning and learning. And it eventually beat the best chess player of all time. So one thing that I remember back in the 80s that was kicked out as a form of AI that everybody laughed about, and you can also look this up, it was something called fuzzy logic, which was AI light, if you will. Fuzzy logic was just something that somebody came out with, and it made a lot of sense to me, because I was all into computers and networking and all that stuff. So fuzzy logic was just a little tiny processor, if you will, that upon programming it, it could think for itself and make decisions, but decisions that you programmed into it. It didn't learn anything. It just did what you told it to do. For instance, it could have been inside your toaster back in the 80s, where instead of a mechanical piece of metal that bends when it gets heated up, that then says, oh, this is where the guy wants his toast to be, and then pops your toast out mechanically. It was a little chip that was programmed to look at colors, and depending how you put the lever on that color, it would say, oh, it's ready, and it would pop out your toast. They started putting it into, washing machines, put it into everything. But then it kind of died out. Funding kind of dried out. Unfortunately, a lot of people started promising too much of its capabilities, so venture capital backed out of it. Pretty much was dead. And now it's just picked up like crazy again. You're hearing terms like IoT, which we'll do another hour on. The Internet of Things. Look that up. So fuzzy logic actually is now one of the hottest things, and it's called AI. So AI got really hot because like around 2012, Google put like 16,000 CPUs together and scanned 10 million images from YouTube videos. And guess what they were able to do? They were able to teach a machine to recognize a cat out of all those pictures. So as our processing units are getting faster, cheaper, and other companies were doing a lot of research on this, Google, just as one example, and I'm not picking on them, but just as an example, they just swallowed up all the little guys that were doing research on this. They had really, really gone further than anybody thought they could. And now they're into that. So if Google's into it, much like I spoke about Amazon being into Bitcoins, you got to kind of put a little bit of trust into it moving forward. And the thought is that it's going to help us. That's why it's kind of picking up right now. We're seeing robots and all kinds of stuff come out. The world's just getting crazier and crazier, so it would make sense that a robot would come in and save the day, just like the movies. So let's talk about something that it does do that does help you. Something called chatbot, which is really interesting. That's like a robot, but then it uses everything that I've been talking about right now, scouring the internet, getting information. But the end result to this is for example, again, something that I've seen that exists. There are two friends that have been friends forever and a day. They've grown up together, texted each other every day. This, by the way, is a true story. And suddenly one of them passes too early. And poof, they're gone. And the best friend is now lost. So she developed a software that went out there and scoured every single text, every single thing that her best friend did on social media. And she crunched it all into a machine. And she allowed people to be able to text this machine as though they were texting her friend. And her friend's now answering her as though he's alive through that software. That's something that I think is a great use of AI, of a robot type machine, something that can help you remember your friend, remember an instance. Hell, a robot to help you bring the groceries in would be great. One that knew how to cook any dish I wanted would be awesome. And then cleaned up after itself? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Not somebody to kill me. Help me in day-to-day tasks so I can use my time to do other things because there's too much coming at me. It just doesn't seem as though I have enough time to get anything done. So yeah, robot would be great in that way. So knowing that robots exist, knowing that they're getting smarter and smarter, knowing that perhaps they'll get smarter than us and figure things out that we never thought we could, like how to build a better one, exponentially getting better and better and better. There's a debate that comes out on this. They're going to rule the world. They're going to take over everything. Well, I hate to tell you guys, but in today's world, not so much. 100 years from now, 200 maybe? Yeah, I could see. But it's really interesting because what I'm going to talk about here next was something that I already had as a subject that I was going to talk about with you folks today, but I just happened to be watching TV, and I happened to be watching one of my favorite shows, TMZ, and it just so happened that like the second or third story they talked about mirrored something that I put on my Facebook page, in that they were showing a robot that does backflips. Look at my Facebook page, it's in there. It's like a 400-pound gorilla doing backflips that can do things that are unimaginable in as far as what a robot can do. And a discussion was brought forth about how robots were going to take over the world with all the guys and gals at TMZ. And one particular person that was right in line with what I'm about to say right now was Derek. He's the lawyer there. One of the two that has some really awesome, funny comments in my book. And he said it right. Unplug it. And that's it. I don't care how sophisticated your robot is. We do not have an eternal power source that is safe enough to use today. Our battery technology, our solar technology, any technology that we derive power from is either too big, too expensive, or too dangerous to be used in conjunction with any type of robot that you may have, humanoid or otherwise, to have it be walking around without being plugged in, recharged, or worst case scenario, press the red button and reboot. Just like a computer. So in essence, what we have today are pieces of glass and plastic that once looked like a computer with a keyboard that are now in the shape of a human or a machine that can perform tasks and help us learn things. Again, like the robot in your pocket, when you press it and ask Siri a question, she'll answer you. That's a robot. You can unplug it, you can turn it off. Hell, you could drop it in some water. It'll fry. They're not that sophisticated people where they're going to reclaim themselves and be eternally alive. No, we have control. That's the one thing that you have to remember. We have control. Solar isn't going to do it. There's no way that a robot, with the calculations that I'm seeing, can possibly sustain more than an hour with a full charge from the sun. Well, what if it's cloudy? I guess it doesn't work that day. So then there's the argument of digestion. That robots designed so well, like in the movies, are going to eat and drink while sitting at the table with us, only what they're eating and drinking is some sort of energy-rich slurry that they're taking in to their internal engine, and it's going to be able to propagate power, and they're going to be able to continue by just sucking up whatever this is that they're sucking up to keep them going. Again, calculations don't bear that out. We eat about 2,500 calories a day. A robot would need 10,887,600 calories a day to run around. That's just power to food ratio. And as far as calories, almost 11 million calories a day. I don't know that we have a rich enough slurry for them to eat to keep going. So then we move into, hey, it makes sense. Let's go nuclear. Just put like a gamma of uranium in there. A megawatt of energy per day. Hell. We can go up to 20, 25, maybe the size of a tennis ball. Stick it inside of it. Have it run around, and it's got energy for 100 years. There you go. There's a solution. There's one little problem with that. Can't build a robot to contain uranium that won't poison you and your entire family and anyone that comes within 500 feet of the damn thing. So I guess that's not an option. So now we're going right back to what Derek said, which made perfect sense. Unplug it. Take the batteries out. Don't charge it. Done. Makes perfect sense to me. So, having said all that, just a couple of things that some I might repeat, but very, very simply, things that you might not recognize as being robots today, but that are all around you. Cell phones, like I told you, they're a form of robot. They know where you are, what you're doing, where you've been. Hell, they'll send you a message because you've been looking at sweaters for 10 minutes. It picks up the fact that you're looking at sweaters. All of a sudden you get home, you get an email with a sweater special. How in the hell does that happen? I guess it's got a brain of its own. Pretty much anything Tesla's putting out's a robot. Again, I'm not knocking them. They're doing great things. And they're the leaders of this. So that's who you got to look forward to as far as how is this going to be done correctly. Elon Musk is a very smart man, so I'm sure he'll come up with something that's, as he did with his cars, now his trucks, and everything else he's putting out there, rockets that can come back and be reused. Who would have thunk? So this is the guy to look to as far as getting this technology down to where we can use it. GPS in your car, that's a robot. They can use that to bust you in court. They know where you're at. I've already talked about this, but IoT, or the Internet of Things, which is the most dangerous thing today. Because if you have anything in your house that's hooked up to your network, like your washing machine, like your thermostat, guess what? I can break into your network and you wouldn't even know it. Right through that little phone controlled thermostat. I just stole all your information. Not me particularly, but a person that would want to do it. Just like they announced that every single wireless router out there, another little robot, has a WPA gate open, wide open to everybody to break into. Every single one made. Still trying to figure out how to patch that. Oops. There's a robot that went awry. Something we'll be talking about here coming up. ELD for trucks. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Electronic log dispatching. December 18th is when it comes live. Now a dude's got 10 hours to take his load from point A to point B. It doesn't matter. It took 5 hours to load the truck. 10 hours a day and you get shut down. If not, that robot will send you a ticket in the mail with no intervention from the next robot that I believe is out there running around. Police cars. Just simply police cars. On the average, a police car will take about 25,000 pictures of license plates in a 12-hour shift, and then they download all that and they have it in a central repository. They start filming you when you're breaking the law by going too fast. Computer automatically turns on the camera, starts filming you. The cop stops. There's proof of how fast you're going, GPS location. Damn near a robot. So it's out there. Now, getting back to power sources and all of these things I just spoke about, there's one thing people have to remember. Everybody's touting Tesla, electric cars, electric this, electric that, and it's all good and working great. Now people are thinking green, which is a good thing, because I remember when I was a kid, you could barely look across the street. It was like what China is today as far as smog. If you walk around China right now for one 10-hour period, you have smoked 40 cigarettes just breathing the air. Look it up. That's because they got prevalent with cars and robots making them and spitting them out. So everybody can afford a car now, and that's what happens. So getting back to the green and having a car that's electric and now you're not using fossil fuels, well, guess what? You got to charge it. And where do you think that comes from? I'd say a high percentage of it is burning carbon. If you're burning carbon, guess what? You're dirtier than my car that uses gas. And if you want to go further into it, you know that these cars have very precious metals. They need precious metals, just like all our electronics do. You wouldn't believe how much gold is in your little tiny PC or your phone. It may not seem like a lot as far as weight, but it's a lot and as far as how much is used to make things contact correctly so that they don't get rotten over time, if you will. Gold is it. So very, very precious metals are being used to make these cars. So precious metals means destructive mines, environmentally destructive mines. Mines mean mining the precious metals. Who knows where they're coming from, what part of the world they're destroying. But they certainly are. So, are they green? Yeah, when you step on a gas pedal, but building them, keeping them running, that all took something from somewhere. And if you really look at it, they're a lot dirtier, these robots, than they are clean. And it brings me to the last point of the dirtiness of robots. What happens upon recycling? I mean, the Model S has a battery that weighs a half a ton. At some point, that battery goes bad. What do you do with half a ton of acid, lead, lithium, all the stuff that it's made out of? There's going to be a undercurrent of jobs that are going to be created by robot waste and robot whatever comes out of it that has to be cleaned up, recycled, gone after. So, again, I'm not against them. I love them. I think we're at a crossroads right now where they're getting more and more sophisticated. We kind of don't know where they're going. We don't know how to control them. We kind of know how to use them, but we're not seeing it. We're seeing it in micro, not macro. If you look at it in macro, you'll come to realize that maybe we should back off a little bit and see where this is going, because it could get kind of scary out there. So I'm just going to make one last point before we part for this week. First, I'd like to thank everybody for making comments and getting on my Facebook page. You know, comment away. Say whatever you need to say, good, bad, or indifferent. I'm there for that reason. So, the last thing I have to say about robots, and you guys might want to make some comments about this, see if this is a good idea or not. How would we control what's coming out as far as robots, whatever kind they are? Well, here's a thought. How about simply avoiding them? Well, how would you do that, Uncle Zed? I was given an example by a gentleman yesterday that I was talking to about robots and how they're taking over the world, and he made a lot of sense. This guy owns a business. Once a week, he has to deposit checks. And you could easily stuff them in an envelope and go to the robot called the ATM and stick it in there. Or nowadays, take a picture of the damn thing and send the picture in, and you just deposited your check. There's your robot, your everyday use robot. While standing in line to deposit his check at his bank, one of the bank employees asked if he was depositing checks. And he says, well, yes, I am, young man. And the gentleman that works at the bank said, well, you know, you can simply stick it inside this envelope and put it inside that machine and you'll go on your merry way. And this person responded in the way that is most perfect to robot avoidance. Simplistic robot avoidance. He turned to this gentleman and said, I think I would rather speak to a person face to face than use a machine so that person can perhaps keep their job. To it, the person working at the bank turned to this guy and said, thank you so very much for that. Because pretty soon they may not need us. And that, my friends, is a sad part about robots. That eventually it will take your job. Eventually it will rule your everyday. You're going to become more and more dependent on it like you are now with your cell phone. And I've said it time and time again. The more you depend on something like that, the less and less you remember. In a crude way, I say, the more you use it, the stupider you get. That's the bottom line. Once you depend on a machine, phone, computer, you're starting to lose the skills that use your brain. Lose those skills because your brain is a muscle. See how hard it is to get it back. If you're 25 years old and you never studied your times tables, you cannot tell me what 9 times 8 is. You have to do it on your phone. So what's going to happen when the robots that we're talking about today take over all the repetitive, all the stuff that we could otherwise do, and we can keep our jobs and we can keep living day to day? Now it's been replaced by robots. It'll turn out like a book called Caves of Steel. I'm not even going to tell you who wrote it. Look it up. Download it in PDF or whatever format and read it. Caves of Steel. See where that got them. Hope all you guys have a great week. Uncle Zed out.
Hey everybody, this is Uncle Zed. If you guys have comments on anything I spit out, at the Uncle Zed Hour on Twitter, look me up. Go ahead and put in your comments, good, bad, indifferent. I like to hear from you guys. I need to gauge what I'm spitting out makes sense to you guys. You like it, you're not. I don't care, I got a thick skin, don't worry about it. Say what's on your mind. Just try not to be too big a dick. Uncle Zed out.